So there is somebody I want to talk about, something that I think we should be honest about and not afraid to have this type of discussion. I want to talk about Martin Luther King. This is a man the world knows about. He's a hero to many. He is an icon. And, we have to thank him for a lot of things that happen for Black Americans here in America. However, we need to have real discussions about Martin Luther King. And we're going to do that right here on the Marc Perspective.
Welcome to Visual Knowledge. 3 reasons to love Martin Luther King. So let's get started. So reason 1, he gave us the philosophy of non-violence. Now, non-violence is categorized in 6 principles, and the following is paraphrasing those principles. So non-violence does not act with physical violence. So what does that mean? It means that we don't initiate with guns or any type of pugilistic endeavors. In this sense, it differs to other movements. It is, however, spiritually and mentally aggressive. The other thing to remember is that there's a helicopter perspective in achieving reconciliation and redemption. The purpose here is to achieve what they define as the beloved community. So the fight is to get justice, and the focus is the system, not the people. Very important distinction, as it sees the system as being evil as opposed to the people being evil. So the person that is racist is part of the problem, but the bigger problem is the system/social institution that promotes this behavior. So it's about education and transforming. Because there's a thin line between love and hate. This chooses love. And there's a core belief that God is a God of justice. Reason 2. Martin Luther King fought for justice and staged non-violent protests all across America. The goal was to end discrimination and racial segregation against African Americans. This led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which, quote, banned employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, end of quote. Also, Martin Luther King wanted to eradicate poverty by providing everyone a guaranteed income. He speaks about this economic vision in his final book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. Reason 3. For Martin Luther King, love is the key to opening the door for the house of humanity. In his own statement, quote, love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into friend, end of quote. Martin Luther King outlined a dream that came to be regarded as one of the finest speeches in the history of American oratory. To put simply, his dream is the narrative for racial equality, cohesion, and harmony.
Before I begin, I do want to say, please like, subscribe, share this channel. Let the world know about the Marc Perspective. Let's get more viewership. I need to get those view hours going so that way we can offer more. So please like, subscribe, share, and please leave a comment so that I can respond to you. I have no problem responding to everybody. So this isn't an easy thing for me to talk about because I truly believed in the message Martin Luther King was trying to send out there. And, I even went and got his license plate, a license plate for my car, but, showing the love and admiration, respect I have for Martin Luther King and everything that he has done for blacks or try to do for blacks, but when I went to college and started learning, and trust me, college had nothing to do with this. It's just that when you go to college, it helps you to become a free thinker, and start to, use, I guess have cognitive thinking, analyze certain things, do research, actually to take that step, to not be afraid, but to venture out and learn. And, when I was in school, you learned a lot of things. For instance, Martin Luther King was civil rights leadership, as it was stated in the video I played earlier. His role in ending legal segregation. Remember, Jim Crow was legal segregation, especially through the Montgomery bus boycott and the March on Washington. Those was very successful marches. Legislative impact. Contributions to the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Let me write down everything that I talk about. Philosophy of nonviolence, drawing from Gandhi. Little did I know that Gandhi was a racist, but I digress. King introduced a method of resistance that redefined protests, because back then protest was bashing and all kind of stuff, but he did redefine the way we protest and how you can get so much accomplished through nonviolence. So that's a good thing. Economic justice and poor people's campaign. I don't know about this one. His pivot toward class and poverty as moral imperative. So I guess, that begins the conversation, but that's just it, begins the conversation. Also, spiritual leadership. So his role as a minister and moral voice in American history. So his voice, his message, especially spiritually and, morally, really hit a spot where black, whites, it really resonated, and it allowed more people to support his cause. I thought it was great that he spread this message. Now, the real Martin Luther King, or the real Martin Luther King Jr., when he was I believe in college, he was in love with a woman named Amelia Elizabeth Moitz, and she was a white woman, and Martin Luther King was very much in love with her, wanted to marry her, but, there were bigger plans for Martin Luther King, and, society would not accept this man with this woman, so it never happened. And so Martin Luther King married Coretta Scott King, who, he treated like excuse my language, he treated like a piece of shit. I'm not sure if he was abusive towards her, but I heard he was very physical, barely home. If Coretta Scott King said it herself, if he did come home, it was maybe for 10 hours, but who knows. But I had to jot down some things because I wanted to talk about Martin Luther King beyond the icon, beyond this great man, this legend, the man that, we all said we wish was president of the United States, this Marxist, this socialist, this communist, the man that set black people up for failure. Yes, this man, Martin Luther King, who we praise every year, who we celebrate every year, who we stay home to celebrate his legacy. Yes, this man destroyed blacks and took us so far back that I swear I don't even know if we can ever come out of this. We are failing in every metric. We're illiterate. We're falling in population. We're easily manipulated. We don't want to work. We want everything given to us. Everything. Okay? And I just don't think blacks will, especially what they call it, the foundational black Americans, then I think doomed. So I wrote down this stuff here that I want to talk about. The FBI surveillance and allegations. Okay. So let me go ahead and read. In the 1960s, the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover launched COINTELPRO. I believe that's COINTELPRO, a covert operation to discredit civil rights leaders, especially King. They wiretapped phones, bugged hotel rooms, and compiled thousands of pages of surveillance reports. A 20-page FBI memo released as part of the JFK assassination files alleges King participated in all-night sex orgies, had dozens of extramarital affairs, and fathered a child with a woman whose husband was allegedly sterile. The memo also claims had an affair with folk singer Joan Baez, among others. So, this is disturbing. And this is pretty sad. And, I am the last person who wanted to have this type of discussion because, like as I stated, Martin Luther King was an idol to me, a legend. And I praised his name. I said, this man, nonviolence. I turned my life around. I don't even believe in violence anymore. And to learn the truth about Martin Luther King is devastating. And I don't know if people can really accept the truth that Martin Luther King, this Marxist, this communist, this socialist, has destroyed blacks as we know it. As we know it, destroyed us. Now this redlining, we're in the ghetto. It destroyed us.
I just want to hop on here for a brief second and just state this. At this present moment in time, with all this talk about the declassification of Martin Luther King's assassination and whatnot, we know that they had tapes and everything, but we also have to be aware that we live in a day and age of artificial intelligence, and we've seen how they can manipulate voices and make someone sound like they said something knowing good and well they didn't sound like that. Keep in mind this right here. MLK and Coretta are no longer alive to defend or even say, hey, we didn't say that. So at this point in time, what I'm really believing is that they want us to believe that Martin Luther King wasn't who he was, but he was indeed a hero to the black community. In addition to MLK being a hero to the black community, we've seen the impact ourselves. And this isn't something that we just saw in history books. This is something that our grandparents told us about. Their mother and father told them about. Some of them have witnessed it. Some people have actually marched they've marched and participated in many of the things that Martin Luther King put together. So don't let what these people put out here about Dr. Martin Luther King sway your beliefs. Remember what you know, not what you think, because the goal is to keep us as divided as possible. They don't want us to know who our heroes are. Guys, please stay strong in this. And remember, if they do try to take his holiday away or anything like that, we're going to still treat January the 20th like a holiday, because at the end of the day, there are many things that we can do to show them that we're not for the riffraff. That's all I had to say. You can leave your comments below on your thoughts about this whole situation, but I'm not going to let them tear down my civil rights leader, the face of civil rights. And we're not going to let them, take it any further. We're going to always honor Dr. King.
I played that video because I want you to see how there are still people out there who just never want to. I always say, if you're going to go debate a black person, be prepared for them to walk away from you or just not to have real discussions. Because a black person will say, when you're getting the best or you seem more knowledgeable or you have the answers, the first thing they'll say is, I'm done talking. I don't want to talk about it no more. They never want to stick around. They never want to debate you. And that's one of our problems. Okay? Now, I played this one here because even though there's evidence that Martin Luther King did these things, okay? There's people out there that just won't accept it. They'll say, well, it's celebration. And they're celebrating Martin Luther King, who basically helped the government destroy blacks when blacks were successful, when they had things, banks, grocery stores, hotels, schools, universities. They had it. And thanks to Martin Luther King, we blew it. Now, we still have these black colleges, the historical black colleges and university. However, blacks don't own as many businesses as they used to during Jim Crow. Isn't that funny that we don't have business like we used to? Okay? A lot of blacks are in bad shape when it comes to credit. You thank Jimmy Carter, a Democrat, for that. I believe it was Jimmy Carter who started this whole credit thing. I digress. But if I'm wrong about that, somebody please let me know. However, we are not successful. We're failing in every metric. And when you lead in illiteracy, there's a problem. And it seemed like these black leaders these so-called black leaders, they're following right in the same footstep of Martin Luther King. Okay? Al Sharpton, he was something else, supposedly, allegedly fooled around with his best friend's woman. Then I think he took her away from him. I mean, these people are something else. Yet we grovel at their feet as if they're the most highest thing on this planet, and it baffles me, and I don't even know what to say about it, But sooner or later, when we see that we're going nowhere and we're failing miserably, that's when, and I believe 2065 will be when we notice, hey, how did we fall to fourth in population when we used to be second? Then we fell to third thanks to the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1965. And then after that, with all this other crap that's been going on, the welfare program, abortion and so forth, we have fallen, and we're continuing to fall. And the blacks that's successful, they come from other countries. And they use American resource to grow. While there's blacks that's born here, we're born here, and we got our hands up. We're like junkies. We need the government's fix. And then every time we don't get what we want for free, we scream racism. And this is all thanks to that socialist, Marxist Martin Luther King. Okay? And that's why I wanted to play her video, this girl video that came out. Oh, we gotta support Martin Luther King and so. And not really diving into the real problems of Martin Luther King.
I don't celebrate MLK because America does. America has too much of a racist history for us to celebrate the same black man. Why would America celebrate MLK? Well, Martin Luther King is responsible for the destruction of black commerce, black business. How? Integration. Before integration, blacks had their own banks, hospitals, lawyers' offices, doctors' offices. They had everything because they couldn't go to the white businesses for anything. You see, integration had nothing to do with equality. It had everything to do with destroying black commerce. So as you celebrate Martin Luther King Day, remember why America celebrates King and why America would celebrate King in every way, but to fulfill his dream of equality.
Let's talk about Martin Luther King. Now, before I even start this video, I just have to put out a disclaimer here. I am going to present facts to you. If you are not emotionally ready as a black person to hear the truth about your history, please scroll past this because this is not for you. So for those of you that don't know, Martin Luther King is a civil rights leader, and he's pretty much known for the reason why black people and white people can be in the same space. Or in other words, integration. Alrighty, so I'm just going to dive right in here. Martin Luther King had a white girlfriend before he married his first wife, Coretta Scott King. And at the time, as a black man, you could not even be seen out on a date with a white woman or you would get killed. So this interracial relationship was very frowned upon in society at the time. So after that relationship, he went on to marry his first wife, a black woman. And his wife pretty much explained that Martin Luther King was never home during their relationship, and it would be an exaggeration to see him for 10 hours at the house. Now, he probably wasn't home because he was too busy having orgies with a bunch of white prostitutes. Yes, they did discover that he was cheating on his wife with multiple white women,
repeatedly throughout the relationship. He would go in hotels and just have multiple orgies with these white prostitutes. In fact, the FBI actually found out about this and recorded some of his intimate encounters with these white women and would send him letters like this, basically telling him to kill himself or they would expose him for cheating on his wife with white women. And Martin Luther King was very fearful about that coming out to the public because this would very much tarnish his image as a civil rights leader at the time. Now, I'm going to tell you my opinion. Disclaimer. I'm telling you my opinion based on the facts that I have researched and confirmed to be true. I'm not going to argue with you about my opinion, okay? We are entitled to one, okay? I personally think that this whole integration thing never helped black people. I think that Martin Luther King's intentions was to fuck a white woman and that was his motivation. I think that we are integrated and we are still at the bottom of every single statistic out there. Black women are still 3 times more likely to die due to pregnancy-related causes. Black men are still 2 times more likely to die before their first birthday compared to white children. As a black person, I'm 5 times more likely not to get a job compared to my white counterparts. They built redlining and incarceration facilities that are privately owned so they can push more black people in there. So integration to me didn't do anything for black people, but keep us oppressed in a low-key way. The only difference is they're not spitting in our faces and being upfront about it. So personally, MLK is not really my hero. This man is. But let me know what y'all think in the comments.
So I'm not the only one that feels this way. You can see there's others that feel the same way. And you know, but I'm pretty hurt by this man's actions. But here's something that's really disturbing. I mean, extremely disturbing. It's a disturbing allegation. So this is allegation. I'm not saying that this is facts, but the way that the FBI wrote down these documents and then it was hidden and people like Jesse Jackson and the King family don't want this information to come out. It speaks volumes. So according to Pulitzer Prize winning biographer David Garrow, FBI documents describe a 1964 incident at the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C., where King was allegedly present during the rape of a woman by Baltimore pastor Logan Kearse, a close associate. Now, in the memo, it stated that King looked on, laughed, and offered advice. You know, like I said, this note was handwritten in the margins of an FBI summary, but it wasn't in the typed transcript. So that alleged action that took place can't really be stated because they never included that in the transcript. However, it was the FBI did document it on their memo, and that memo was, kept with the other documents or in the archive somewhere. So, but historians would say, because I guess the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover had such a hard on for King that they could be making up anything, but, me personally, I don't think this was made up. I think this is the truth. I think Martin Luther King basically sold us for a bag of goods. And, I don't know how to feel, because I don't want people to think I'm dragging his legacy through the mud. It's basically, what do we do when our heroes fail us? If everything that is true, if everything that is hidden or will be revealed and it's true, then what do we do? How do we sit down and say that Martin Luther King fought for the best and yet we got the worst? Because if you look now, we got the worst. Black Americans, we Carnival Cruise Line don't want to play rap music anymore because look at our behavior. And our behavior is disgusting. Our education, um, the homicide. I mean, it's the list goes on, and it's always us at the bottom. Then with the attitudes, and then the black women and the black men, and we can't unite because we're so, hatred of each other. We're like crabs in a bucket, and it's really sad. I don't even know, if blacks, well, sensible blacks, if they can handle the truth. Because there are going to be some blacks out there they're going to say, oh, they're just lying, and, we're going to celebrate his thing, and go out there and twerk and do all kind of dumb stuff. I'm trying to tell a girl about free education at Harvard University's courses. They're free. You go to Harvard, free online courses at Harvard, you'll find them, and they're free. Okay, and nobody wants to do it. I'm like, hey, there's free courses to help you, and they're like, yeah, no, I don't want it. They want to be loud, obnoxious. That's what they want, and to me, it's quite sickening. But I don't know what else to say, but to pray for us, to pray that we really hold our leaders accountable, hold ourselves accountable, and to really think on what we need to do to grow, to progress in this life where we have set ourselves up for failure, or we allowed others to set ourselves up for failure. We need to figure out why is it so easy for us to be manipulated, to be made fools out of, and to believe in fairy tales, to believe that the government is going to give us, while the ones who's working hard to achieve the best are doing way better than us in education, the workforce, everything. And all we could just do is cry the white man. Anyway, I'm about to go call it a night. I truly enjoyed talking about this. I hope others will listen and reflect and, get with others so that, and like I said, and let's hold our leaders accountable. Please remember, like, subscribe, share this channel, leave a comment below. I will respond back. You can also reach me at themarcperspective@gmail.com.